was very surprised by your accent in the movie because it sounded to me Spanish.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Is that what you were going for?
So long as it sounds like somewhere in Europe, I'm happy. I mean, we sort of... It started off by saying to do a Spanish accent, and then he cast some Italians and Mexicans, so I changed a little bit from the kind of straight Spanish to round it out a bit to sound a bit more like the other town Marines. But I just wanted to keep it light so it wouldn't be too, intrusive on the story. But I'm pleased to hear that it works to a Spanish ear.
It did, yeah. You had a dialogue coach for that?
I did, yes, yeah.
Was it hard for you to...
Well, a lot of the jobs that I've done have been in different accents, so I like to work in different accents, but it took some work. I listened to some tapes of some Spanish speakers speaking English, so sort of like student tapes.
I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
How does it feel to enter a franchise that already has its main characters and become the star of the second film?
Well, it's obviously very exciting, but at the same time there's obviously, I think, a responsibility because of the success of the first film and how much people love the first film, and also because I was a huge fan of these books since childhood. There was a responsibility to kind of be faithful to the tone of these kind of quite very English books. So yeah, it's a lot of things at once, but mostly just a kind of exhilarating ride, really.
I read your character as a person who confronts something he didn't expect, he wasn't prepared for. Is that how you saw Caspian?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's a coming of age story for him, and he kind of has to come to terms with the realization that these stories that he's heard of, in his very young years are very much true, and his perspective on life changes with the fact that his own people are trying to kill him. So that there's this very cathartic story about him having to sort of fight against his own people. Realize that he's actually one of the bad guys.
In the next film, would it be very different from that?
Yes, I mean, at the end of this film, he says he doesn't think that he's ready to be a leader, ready to be the king, and then in the Dawn trilogy, we'll see him several years later having been the king, having been ruling the land. So he'll be more of a man, he'll be more kind of grown up, I imagine. So we'll see.
You're playing Dorian Gray in
Yes.
a film by Oliver Parker. How do you feel about this?
I'm really excited. Again, it's another, one of those books that I read slightly older. I wasn't 8 when I read it, but I was in my teens, I think, and it's just one of those sort of great universal stories of selling your soul. So I think it's obviously a far cry from this, sort of a much darker story. And I think the interesting thing is the kind of the journey, like with Caspian, is the journey. Whereas Caspian kind of learns humility and learns to be a better person through the course of this film, Dorian is the opposite. He just gets darker and more evil as the story transpires.